Hello and greetings from Philadelphia. My name is Kristen Pantazis, and I'm an Associate Director of Admissions at the University of Pennsylvania's Undergraduate Admissions Office. I am absolutely delighted to welcome you to our Quaker Conversation Global Alumni Panel event, and I want to sincerely thank all of you for taking the time to learn more about how our alumni leverage their Penn education and the Quaker community on campus and beyond. Before we jump into the event today, I want to do a brief acknowledgement of where I, as a Penn admissions officer, am located in the city of Philadelphia. I want to begin with acknowledging the community of Penn and the land that our campus sits on. Penn occupies the traditional homelands of the Lenape. Penn acknowledges this fact and expresses our deep gratitude to the Indigenous people, both past and present, for the opportunity to live and learn on and through Lenapehoking, the land of the Lenape. Thank you. As we prepare to kick off this session, I do have a few quick housekeeping items and reminders for everyone. As you may have seen on the opening slide, we do have closed captioning available this morning. All you need to do is click on that CC button on the Zoom toolbar, and you'll be able to access that service. Additionally, many of you have already submitted questions for our panel via your registration form. Thank you for doing that. If you have additional questions throughout the panel this morning or afternoon or evening, depending on where you're tuning in from, you can feel free to submit those to us using the Q&A feature on the Zoom toolbar. We will answer as many of these questions as we can during the panel, either via writing or via the panelists themselves. And we also will select some audience questions to answer later on during the panel. Please note, though, despite our best efforts, we won't be able to answer every single question that's submitted during the session, but we will do our best to get to as many as possible during the 60-minute session. Now, before we jump into learning a little bit more about our panelists, we do want to hear a little bit from you as participants in our panel. We want to get a sense of where in the world you call home. So I'm going to activate a poll that you can fill out to tell us which region of the world you call home. This will be open for the next 60 seconds. And while you're filling this out, I want to do a few quick reminders about the event today. This alumni panel will run for about 60 minutes and will include insight into what the Penn community provides to students both during their undergraduate studies and after, as well as the ways in which Penn alumni impact the world today. Now, this panel will not include detailed information about our admissions policies or application processes, nor will it include the perspective of our current students. If you want to find out more about admissions to Penn, our application process, our current student experience, we encourage you to explore the Penn admissions website for more ways to connect with our Penn admissions staff. We definitely have a lot of virtual offerings available, and we encourage you to do that. All right, we've hit the 1 minute mark, and I'm going to go ahead and share the results of where folks are tuning in from and what region of the world they call home. I'm glad to see a nice spread of folks coming from all around the world, and we're so glad that each of you have decided to spend some time with us today. Thanks, everyone. All right, now's the exciting time where I'm going to turn things over to our moderator for today. I am absolutely delighted to have a class of 1989 graduate of Penn's School of Engineering and Applied Sciences in our Wharton School, a class of 2015 graduate of Penn's School of Liberal and Professional Studies, a member of Penn's Board of Trustees, and our moderator for today, Ramanan Raghavendran. Ramanan, take it away.
Thanks, Kristen. Welcome everyone from around the world, no matter what time zone you're in. I and our four panelists have been excited about the session and looking forward to it for a while. And I want to thank Kristen and her colleagues in Penn Admissions for bringing us together today. I'm going to do a quick round of asking each of our panelists to provide a brief biography of themselves. Let me do mine first. Kristen touched on it. I'm Ramanan, class in 1989, twice over. I have 2 undergraduate degrees from Penn, and then 20 years later, I went back to Penn and got a part-time graduate degree from the School of Arts and Sciences. I came to Penn from high school in India. I was an international student at Penn. That is a very defining part of my Penn experience. I currently live in the Bay Area of San Francisco. I run a venture capital firm with offices in the Bay Area and Singapore, and I play a number of volunteer roles for Penn. Kristen mentioned one, which is I serve on the board of trustees, but probably my deepest interaction is that I'm the global coordinator of the Penn Alumni interview program, which a couple of our other panelists are also closely involved with. All right, enough about me, more about our panelists needed. I'm going to turn first to Isabel Brito. Isabel, would you mind doing the same?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Isabel. I graduated a little less than a year ago. And I'm originally from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. So I was also an international student at Penn. I studied cognitive science, concentrating within that in neuroscience. And since graduating, I worked briefly at a startup here in Brazil that was founded by a Penn alum, and I imagine I'll expand on that later. And now I'm currently at McKinsey in the São Paulo office. So back to Brazil.
Fantastic. Thank you, Isabel. And then next up, we have Shadrach Frimpong. Shadrach, could you do the same?
Hi, everyone. My name is Shadrach. I'm from Ghana, but actually within Ghana, in a small village called Takrabeman, about 8 hours out from Accra. Penn class of 2015, I studied biology and public health as an undergrad, health and societies. And in 2018, I also came back for a year degree, master's in nonprofit leadership degree in the School of Social Policy and Practice, also at Penn. And right now, I'm based in both Ghana and then the United Kingdom, in Cambridge, where I'm doing a PhD in public health and primary care. Yeah.
Thank you, Shadrach. Shadrach, are you in the UK right now or in Ghana?
Well, because of my dual life, when I'm in the UK, I'm doing a PhD there at Cambridge, and in Ghana, every quarter I'm in Ghana. So as I'm talking to you, I'm in Ghana, and every quarter I'm in Ghana because of the work that we do with Cocoa 360, which I co-founded. I founded with funding from the President's Engagement Prize that I won in my senior year at Penn. Yes.
Fantastic. We will come back to that, I'm certain. Sasibai, you're next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sasi. I'm Malaysian. I applied to Penn as a high school student in Malaysia, and I graduated from Wharton in 2000. I studied finance and management. Penn was an amazing experience. I actually also studied abroad in Sweden while I was at Penn. My background is actually in investment banking and private equity, and then I kind of quit my whole corporate life, and I ended up starting a social enterprise called Earth Air. And yeah, I moved back to Malaysia about 10 years ago, so I've been based here since.
Thanks, Sasi. Deka, you're last but not least.
Thank you. Good morning. I was born in New York, but raised in Jamaica. So I came to Penn from Jamaica. I am class of 94, did applied science, environmental systems in the engineering school and finance at Wharton. I've worked as a scientist and also in the government. So I went back I've been back to Penn a few times. So I went back to do my MBA in 2001. I got asked to come back to serve in government. So I went on leave and I went back to Wharton again in the executive MBA program this time to finish. I'm currently in Jamaica, retired fully from the government. And I have a consulting company that I've co-founded with family members, and we have 2 charitable organizations here and in Florida that work on building community, building resilience, and investing in early childhood education.
Fantastic. Thank you all four of you for sharing that background, which I think will help contextualize your answers to our questions. So we're going to get going on the questions here, and I'll be switching back and forth between questions we know everyone has and questions from the audience. I'm going to start from first principles for this group, which is, I want to take you back, and it's hardest for me because I'm the oldest of all of you. Just thinking back to your college search, if you can. You're a high school student, you're a junior or a senior. Why did you choose to attend school in the United States? And why did you choose Penn? And I think this is a really important question. So I'd like each of you to respond. I'll just go in order. Deka, you happen to be in my line of sight on the screen, so you get to set the template.
I'm in the line of fire. Okay, so I always knew I wanted to go to the US to study. A couple of things happened. There was a very famous previous admissions director who was Jamaican. Ambrose Davies is a legend here in Jamaica. And there had been a number of information sessions. But my father really wanted me to go to Harvard. So this was his dream. He wanted me to go to Harvard. I said, absolutely not. It's never going to happen. And I wanted to go to New York. And he said, not my 16-year-old daughter in New York by herself. It's not happening. So he said, choose somewhere in between. And I chose Penn because it was very international. It was a city. New York was up the road. So I thought, I was like almost in New York. As I said, Ambrose Davies had come here quite a bit. I did end up going to Harvard after, so he did win that. But that's how I chose Penn.
Thank you. I'm just going to go around the screen here. Sashi, would you mind taking a whack at that?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I was applying, I was trying to decide between the UK and the US. So I had a choice of either start studying law at King's College or applying to the US. And at that point, I actually didn't even know what the Ivy League was or anything. I mean, I knew about Harvard and Yale and Princeton, but that was it. And I actually applied to Penn because my best friend from high school applied to Penn. Yeah, so it was a bit of a shame because I ended up going to Penn and she didn't. But yeah, that was, and plus my dad said he wasn't going to support me if I went to a non-Ivy League university. So I had to make sure I got into Penn.
Well, parental pressure seems to be a hardy perennial in human life. Shadrach, would you mind just thinking back to why you came to Penn when you did?
I quite honestly, at the time I was applying to high schools, did not know about, Ivy Leagues and all of that stuff, quite honestly. I don't, first of all, I attended a high school in Ghana, public high school, that, is not a feeder to some of these schools, right? So when I went to high school, was the expectation you finish, you graduate, and then you go to schools like the University of Ghana or, any of the local universities. And so I got to learn about actually the SAT my final year because the funding was a situation for problem for my family. I could graduate high school and go back to the village and help my parents on the farm. And obviously that would be a whole different story on its own. So I actually, to the SATs, went out, got some help. So I actually first spent my first year at Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee. So I don't know whether lucky or unlucky, people that had to transfer to Penn. So I transferred to Penn after my first year at a historically Black college. Absolutely phenomenal experience. I loved it. And I transferred to Penn because I was looking for an opportunity to do more biomedical research. I love asking questions, and I was not having that opportunity there as much as I loved my time there. I was very fortunate, applied to a couple of schools and got very blessed to have to be able to pick from schools like Penn and Cornell. And obviously I chose Penn in that moment because I think at the time I have always taken inspiration from my country's first leader, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and he graduated from Penn. Nigeria's first president, Nnamdi Azikiwe, also went to Penn. And I thought, okay, the greatest thing I could ever have is to, work on the same campus under the same grounds that the people you admire worked on. And so for me, Penn was like, it was like a dream come true, if you'd say. A dream I'm still living today. So yeah, that was more or less my trajectory to Penn. Yeah.
Thank you, Shadrach. Before I ask Isabel to speak, because she has gone through thinking about Penn in more of the, let's call it the modern era. I'll just do 2 seconds on myself. I was completely clueless. This was an era before the internet. You had to write to the university to get brochures. This is a horrible thing to say, but Penn had the best brochure. And that is the real reason I ended up with Penn and have had this lifelong connection. Isabel, you get to bring all of us in our audience up to date in terms of your experience, why you chose to come to the US and why you chose Penn.
Yeah, of course. So I think the reason why I chose to go to the US and then Penn, it's kind of the same reason, but I definitely thought about it in different steps. So I think like my decision to go to the US was mainly motivated by the fact that, at least in Brazil, there's no like liberal arts. So it's like you either do engineering or econ or you're a doctor, and that's kind of it. And in high school, I never felt like I fit into either of these. I loved biology, but I also loved literature and history. And I thought, I'm not ready to make a decision, and I don't necessarily want to make a decision. So that was my thought process in applying to the US. And I was 100% sold on that. Like I applied to a range of schools, safety schools, reach schools, which Penn was in that category. I didn't do early decision. I didn't feel like I knew enough of the schools to kind of, make that decision first. I thought, well, let's just apply and then see what happens. And to be honest, I don't know if this is the best way to do it, but I feel like I applied to Penn knowing not so much about it. But then after I got in, I did my research. And as cheesy as it sounds, well, I got the opportunity to visit all the schools I was applied to. And as cheesy as it sounds, like Penn just felt right. One thing that I would recommend is when you're visiting schools, try to get in touch with like people of your nationality or other international students that you might be able to meet and talk to. And I think that that's how I got the feeling of what Penn was like. And I think it really spoke to the reason why I wanted to go to the US in the first place, which is that like at Penn, you have some majors that, including the one that I did, where you have humanities and STEM put together into the curriculum. And then on top of that, you can take classes in engineering and you can take classes at Wharton and nursing and in the college. And I think that's the reason why I chose to go to Penn. And that's the reason why I think for me, at least, I made the right decision.
Just going to take myself off mute again. Thank you so much for that. And I just love that response because it really captures what Penn is, the interdisciplinarity and the flexibility, which I think is reflected in the fact that many of the panelists, including myself here, have multiple degrees from Penn in very different topics. Okay, next question, which I think is a universal one. Everyone on this Zoom does a lot of alumni interviews. I do 20 or 30 a year, and pretty much every alumni interview of an applicant, I get the question about what it was like to transition to Penn as an international student. You're coming from far away. In many cases, you may never have left your home country, and we'll each talk about our experiences. So the question is, what was it like to transition to Penn as an international student, and what sorts of support did you receive as you adjusted to campus in Philadelphia? And I'll just, Isabel, since you were last up, you're going to be first up this time, so you can just continue or give us the historical arc. Okay, then you got to campus. What happened?
Yeah, sounds good. I actually, personally, I did not have a very easy transition, but I think it's a lot about your personality too. I think, for example, like I'm a bit resistant to change. So I think I had that difficulty. And I think now when I talk to my friends, international or not, all of them had that difficulty. So I think that, just like leaving home and going somewhere new is difficult for everyone. But I think that it's the international people somehow found themselves. And I don't understand how, but I remember when I got to Penn, I was put into group chats of the Brazilians, of other Latinos, and I just met a lot of international students, and all these people started, making friends with each other and knowing each other, and it was very like natural. So and like I remember at the time, one of my best friends, who's still my friend, like was Australian. So anyway, I feel like international people find themselves, and after that, I started becoming more friends with Americans, and some of my best friends are Americans too. So it's not like you're segregated at all. But I think it's really nice to have that support system right at first that is like constitutes of people with a very similar experience. Like they're also far from home. They're also dealing with like time zones and FaceTiming their parents and not being able to go home for a weekend if they're homesick. So I think that's really nice.
Got it. Thank you for that, Isabel. I'll do my quick editorial answer myself. I found it super easy. In that era, and even more so now, Penn was just a very welcoming place. But Isabel, I want to just amplify your remark a little bit, without wanting to suggest that we're all congregating in our little groups. One of the joys of Penn, which is the most international of the Ivies, is it is potentially the most international experience you will ever have, even though you're coming to a very American university with 85% of the undergraduate student body being from the US. And that was amazing. That I'm never going to be in that kind of setting again. Sasha, you're up next on this very topic. What was it like to come to Penn as an international student?
Yeah, I mean, I actually recall that there was an International Students Week or orientation when I started. And so that was, that week was great because some of the friends that I met in that first week remained my friends until now. And but I wanted to say like what Isabel said, that initially, like, I mean, there was definitely like adjustment to American culture. Like, for example, I remember the first time someone said "What's up," right? And I actually stopped because I thought they were asking me a question, and then I was like, "Oh wait, the person's already gone." And I was like, "Oh right, it's not an actual question; it's just a greeting." Right. So I mean, that was something funny, but yeah, I mean, I had a great time at Penn. I think the 4 years that I had at Penn were some of the most amazing times of my life in a way. I mean, it was great. Like you said, Ramanan, it was amazing to meet so many people from so many different walks of life, from different parts of the world. Um, and I think, this international students, we did have a support network because, back then there was no FaceTime. I got like maybe one phone call with my parents, like 5 or 10 minutes once a week if I was lucky. And that was it. So you literally had like very little contact with your family, and email was, my parents didn't have email back then. So so you really could feel very isolated at that point. But having other friends who were also really far away from home, really helped get through the initial year, like couple of months maybe. But after a while, you get so adjusted and so happy at Penn that you may forget to call your parents.
Yeah, well, I was writing handwritten letters back in my era, which makes me feel like a dinosaur. So why don't we move off that topic quickly? Deka, could you take a whack at the same question? What was it like to transition to Penn as an international student?
Sure, no group chats. So I noticed that immediately when you said that, Isabel. No group chats. Didn't have my own computer. There was a lab. Same experience with the phone calls and what was email. But Penn is big on community, and you feel that from day one. So Locust Walk had, there's a central walk through campus, and there's always something going on, always different groups, and so avenues to explore. We had the Caribbean American Students Association, so we eventually found each other. Probably, I'm guessing now, this is a long time ago, probably on Locust Walk with the various groups showing, who was doing what. And then I had work study. So I was on financial aid, and my first job was with the financial aid office. So you get to meet people through that. And then I worked with the M&T office since I was a management technology student, which is where you do these 2 degrees in 4 years with engineering and Wharton, but there's an office. And so, and was an administrator and a place to gather. And so we had various avenues for my various interests. And the underlying theme was that Penn was very big on community. So you always felt like somebody was trying to make you feel comfortable.
Got it. Thank you, Dika. Shadrach, I'm going to ask you the same question, which is what it was like to transition to Penn as an international student. But you're in the interesting position because you first went to Fisk. You can sort of contrast that experience as an international student with maybe what it was like at Penn.
Yeah, I mean, I think at Fisk it was absolutely different in terms of the fact that practically as a young Black man coming from Ghana, everybody looked like me, and that made things much more easier. People understood me, we could talk about almost the same things. One of my heroes, E.B. Du Bois, literally had a status on Fisk campus. But guess what? I'll get to Penn and also find out that not only is there a statue or anything of the sort, it's an actual college house at Penn named after Du Bois. So that, kind of made connection a bit easier. That is to say also that for me, Penn, in all admissions, coming to Penn is the place that I first sort of realized who I really am, in the sense that when I was in Ghana, I never thought about the fact that I was really Black or white, I never had to think about what I looked like until I quite came to Penn. Because, people looked different than I did. Whereas at Fisk, everybody was Black. So that was more one of the salient transitions. That said, it was a very great supportive system. Many of us on this call, international students, do know Liz O'Connell very well. Liz, I don't know how she does it, finds time for everybody. I say, admitting us is not enough. She wants to play that role too. So she took it on, helped me to find the kind of spaces. We have the International Student Transfer Association. So that was also very helpful. Spent a lot of time with Rudy and the team in the ISS office. Great people, helped me to, find my own niche. I thrive in spaces when I'm given the support or the guidance into places that I can actually shine. And the ISS, Rudy and his team at ISS, Liz, my own college advisor, Dr. Jean, these people played such phenomenal roles in helping me to know where to fit in. One of the other transitions that I had came into when I went to Penn was, I always say this, it's just, I never thought you eat leaves as food, All the food I eat is like rice, boiled plantain. The Ghanaians on the call would know fufu, then all the Nigerians, jollof. Man, I love stuff like that. So then you come to Penn and your classmates are like, hey man, I know this restaurant, we're gonna go check this out. It's really, really good. So I'm like, okay, good, we got that. Let's go check it out. All right, then we go, everybody sits down. Well, the restaurant, they bring, this is the pot, right? The pot next to Samson. They bring like these leaves and they say it's called salad. And they want to charge me $40 for it. I'm just like, no, you don't have to. Come on, man. I'm not paying $40 for the leaves. And he said, no, this is, specially curated, all of that stuff. But hey, getting used to stuff like that. Eventually, of course, you always have to be open to trying something new. Today, it is literally my lunch staple because it's light. I eat it and it helps me to get through my day. Whereas previously, if I eat that many carbohydrates, guess what? I'm going to crash midday. So there was that food adjustment, but there was a huge Ghanaian community at Penn, right? We have the African Students Society at Penn, PASA, Penn African Student. So that community too, And then later we found out, of course, guess what? We found out Kilimanjaro, up there, you know, the Senegalese jollof place and the African. So Aku's Kitchen, all these African dishes places help to really bring everything back home. The thing I loved about Penn as an international student, transitioning from a place that was more of small college feel, and also coming from a country where within the country, I grew up in a small rural area, was I could not understand how it was possible for a university to feel like a liberal arts university, a small liberal arts university, and at the same time be that big. Penn felt like that. And for many of us, I think, who did, you know, further studies in other universities, it's sharply different. It makes you always grateful to have gone to Penn. Yeah, I went to Yale for my master's in public health, great institution, has this college system and all of that. But that closeness, smallness that I felt at Penn, I could never till date replicate it anywhere. Yeah.
Got it. And thank you very much for sharing some of that, Shadrach, because I'm just reminded, and this will help, I think, our audience a little bit. Penn is situated as a compact urban campus in one of the most vibrant cities in the world now, not just in the US, but in the world. You know, Philadelphia has transformed since my time there. And one comment I want to just amplify is for international students, we miss our food. You know, the first thing I did when I got to the Penn campus was find one of the few Indian restaurants. And that made a huge difference to my Penn experience. And this is something to think about as you apply to colleges. You know, the dense urban setting has many, many positives, and one of them is yummy food. Okay, I'm going to start wandering through a couple of other questions, and I want to get to some audience questions. So these are also questions that we've received in the Q&A box, but also questions I think those of us who do alumni interviews get every year. So Deka, I'm gonna start with you on this one. As you reflect on what you do now, how did your time at Penn help you prepare for that experience? And I'm just gonna add on a part two to that question, which is, how has the Penn alumni community played a role in that post-Penn, post-undergraduate experience?
So I studied environmental systems and finance. So that was 30 years ago. Fast forward, and we're dealing with climate change, issues to do with investment. My applied science paper was on the largest waterborne disease outbreak in the United States at the time. So I had the training and the systems, problem solving skills, and exposure to a lot of the issues that rolled around when we started to see the first signs of a pandemic coming. So in terms of being prepared, I was absolutely prepared. I say every day, I'm so grateful for my Penn education, because the training that I had in terms of the exposure to the subject areas, but also the skills to be able to solve problems and see things and bounce, you know, to do different things, that foundation really came through at Penn. I'm also the president of the Penn Alumni Club of Jamaica. And what I did was, in true Jamaican style, is every year I have a party. So every year we get together.
Do you invite alumni
Yes,
from
absolutely,
outside Jamaica, such as your fellow panelists?
Well, you know, absolutely. So what happened was that I would invite people to get together during the holidays, because people come home. So the students would come home, and then people who live in the diaspora would come home to be with family during the holidays. And it was an all Penn event. And then the other schools wanted to come. So it became all Ivy. And then Stanford MIT wanted to come. So now it's all Ivy, Stanford, MIT. And then we didn't do it last year because of the pandemic, but the year before that, Cambridge and Oxford asked to come. So now we have this community that is much broader than just Penn. And we've stayed in touch through that avenue. And it's very exciting to be able to be physically in a place like Jamaica, which is an island, and you can tend to feel like you are cut off from some of the things that you miss, in being able to travel and being able to, especially this last year, being able to travel and engage with people from other places. And we do that now still. So.
Got it. Sasha, you want to take a quick whack at that question? How did your time at Penn help after you graduated, and how does the alumni community interact with that? And I'm also going to take a whack at this question after you're done.
Sure. I mean, for me, I think, Wharton, studying finance, the traditional path. I did the investment banking, private equity, and I kind of realized after a while, like, that wasn't my thing. And I think for me, having the network of Penn and Wharton friends was a great network to figure out all of when you're sort of going through transitions, like about career choices, and there's so many resources at Penn to help you navigate career decisions, and people who are willing to spend their time to mentor you. And I also had the Wharton, Penn and Wharton Alumni Society in Malaysia. And so when I left my sort of banking finance life and I started Earth Air, as a social enterprise working with like traditional artisans, a lot of the people that supported and were first, buyers of our products were my fellow friends and alumni. And Wharton as well as a school, and, has been so supportive of sharing what we're doing and my story, and inviting me to speak and stuff. So it's really been, I've really felt like, as an entrepreneur, when you're trying to like get word out of who you are and what you're doing, it's been so fantastic to have that support. And like Shadrach, I did my master's in Cambridge as well. And so I don't want to diss the UK. But
Diss the UK. We'll never be allowed to do a panel again by Penn admission, but
but I think, even in my own family, I encouraged all of my siblings. I said, you have to try your undergraduate in the US, because the experience of, even though I was at Wharton, I did classes like drama and, pottery. And, pottery is a skill that I still have till today. So it's like, you're not stuck to, like what Isabel said, to studying one thing for like 3 years. You become a wholesome human being. Like, you learn how to write, you learn about philosophy. It really makes you think and grow as a human being, and have such a wide variety of subjects that you learn. So for me, I think having that exposure at Penn has really prepared me to think in a multi-dimensional way, rather than just think like in one way with one subject that I may have studied. Yeah.
Got it. And thank you for that as well. I'll make my commentary, because this is a question that is near and dear to my heart. Firstly, I think the Penn education is unparalleled, and certainly that stays with you for the rest of your life. But for me, a lot of what makes Penn is the relationships. And here I would say that the friends I formed on campus, most of them are still friends of mine, 35 years later, which is at some level ridiculous. I think more importantly, one of Penn's greatest strengths, and one that maybe doesn't leap out in all of our materials, is the Penn Alumni Network. And you're seeing some of that power in this call. I often joke with folks that you could go anywhere in the world and you will find Penn alum. Just look at our call, right? Brazil, Malaysia, Ghana, Jamaica, and the United States, which is where I happen to be. And I've had Penn alumni play a role in my life throughout my professional career. My business partner right now for the last 8 years is a Penn alum, not from my class. He's someone I met at a Penn event. And so that begins to maybe give the audience a sense for how wonderful the alumni network is and how supportive it is. Shadrach, I would like to come to you next, because I would like to turn this discussion a little bit towards how Penn alumni make a positive impact on the world. And several of you on this call, on this Zoom call, are doing things that are really not cut from traditional careers that one views. Some of you began that way, some of you transitioned to it. So Shadrach, what can you tell us about both yourself and maybe other Penn alumni in your network who you think are having a positive impact on the world, and how?
Yeah, good. Thanks for that question, Ramana. And I think, like you said, almost all the panelists on this session, one way or the other, are making an impact on the world. For me, the impact that Penn had on my life started more on a personal visual level by giving me that scholarship opportunity. So I see a lot of people in there asking if Penn gives full ride. Yes, I'm one example. I had a full ride to Penn. If they told me to pay $100, I couldn't go. Yes. So, and it was not just that. Penn even gave me the opportunity to. One time, my mom was really sick, and I couldn't focus on studies. They paid my ticket for me to go back home. I don't know any other institution that could do that. So people say, "Why do you love Penn?" I don't know. There's no way to put it. But for somebody who grew up in a rural setting without running water and electricity, until maybe I was like 12 when I moved to the city for high school, I did not. I could not attend a place like Penn without funding. And that funding support forever changed the trajectory of my personal life. Fast forward, my whole family, we're doing great. We no longer live in mud huts. We're in the village, but nice housing. My parents have both visited the States. My siblings have all, by being at Penn, I could use my work study to support my siblings. And most importantly, I have 4 sisters. So it's we're just 2 boys. We were to support them through school with my work study at Penn. All of them went to college. One of them decided to go my route, also on a full ride in another university, also in the US, actually. So Penn just changed my personal life and that of my family. They didn't stop there. If Penn did that, it would have been enough. But it seemed as though Penn was like, no, we're not done. And in my senior year, I was very blessed to be one of the winners of the President's Engagement Prize. Gave me $150K. And the amazing thing about the Penn network is Penn is more like a village, In my community, we have this saying that if you come from here, you come from everyone, in the sense that you are raised by a village. So for me, Penn embodied that. When I had that $150K President's Engagement Prize, of course it was tough, because graduating from Penn, coming from that kind of background, international student, you want to go home. You don't want to go home. You go home after you've made the billions of dollars, right? And at the time, I didn't have anything, but I felt that, okay, if my university is believing in me this much, we're going to go back home. With the President Engagement Prize, we decided to start a nonprofit organization we call Cocoa 360. We built an all-girls tuition-free school that starts all the way from the foundation classes. Now we're up to grade 4. I have about 210 students, all girls, tuition-free. And we also have a community hospital that, within a 5-hour transport radii is the only place where a pregnant woman can literally deliver. Previously, a woman would have to travel through the forest. I was born on a farm, right? My parents had to guess my date of birth. That's how real it is. So all these things were made possible because a university said, nah, we're gonna give you the opportunity of an education and we're gonna make it possible for you to take all that education. And some of you may have read it on the university's website. This is what the Penn calls the Penn Compact. Many other universities, every university has its own goal. When I went to Yale, I found that Yale, incredible institution that set its sights on grooming maybe more of Nobel Science Prize winners and all of that. That's phenomenal. We need such people too to come up with the discoveries. But Penn I found to be the kind of institution that says, hey, you're not going to wait to win a certain prize or anything. Right to education, you have to go and start impacting lives. And the engagement prize allowed us to do that. Fast forward, this is literally our office in Accra, right? I'm in our conference room. And that little seed funding has helped us 5 years now raise, millions of dollars. We're in 8 communities now, serving 35,000 farmers. The other piece to the puzzle is when I won the prize, my roommates were actually young Ghanaians, also classmates from Penn. They had offers from Goldman Sachs and you name it. I see people asking questions about Goldman Sachs. Well, you go to Penn and your opinions may change. Sassy has shared this, but I'm sure, but my roommates had those offers. One of them was already working there, they turned it down. 2 of them, class of 2015, also Ghanaian. Another Ghanaian as well, class of 2013. He was already working with one of the investment banking firms. They all left and we all came back and we just did what we've been able to do. Our CFO, he's very busy literally on an investor call in our other conference room, but he went to Wharton and we started and we're still in this together. So that's really the Penn network. It's power. I came down to Ghana because literally a month ago we got a call from the Ghanaian government asking us, within the rural district you guys are in, there's a total of 160 communities. In those 160 communities within the county or district, almost every other community is having a COVID-19 infection case. The 8 communities you guys work in, there are no cases. What are you doing differently? And earlier last year when the pandemic started, we had gotten some funding from the Clinton Foundation and the Queen's Commonwealth Trust to start a rural COVID-19 intervention. Little did we know that this intervention is actually sort of like the go-to or the blueprint for how rural interventions in these times should be done. So now I come back and now we're working with the government to roll out that success into 100 rural communities in the next 365 days. Even with vaccination, you're seeing vaccine hesitancy. It takes effective community engagement and the work that we do to counter some of these narratives. And we're still the same Penn band doing that. And now we're doing that in tandem with another Penn alum called Owusu Akoto, who graduated from Wharton, started this code link chain called Freeze Link that helped Ghana to get literally the vaccines. Some of you may have read about it in the New York Times. Another international student as well. He and I spoke and we're looking at, okay, how can we get the vaccines down to rural areas? I don't know any other university that could have prepared a human being to possibly do that, both with people and the resources.
Shadrach, just in the interest of time, I'm gonna, because that was just awesome and awesomely interesting. I'm just gonna quickly turn to Isabel, who is a very recent graduate, and ask this question, because you made a decision and then you made another decision, Isabel, as you think about the career track. How did you figure out next steps after graduating from Penn, and take us through the sequence of decisions, not just the first one, and what Penn resources helped you on that journey? I think this audience would find that really interesting.
Yeah, of course. And I think this kind of speaks to the other question about like the Penn alumni network and et cetera. So basically my senior year, I thought I really want to work at a startup. And I had a spreadsheet with like the names of all startups that I felt did something interesting. And I would go on QuakerNet or LinkedIn and try to look for Penn people in each of them. And there was Penn people in, I'd say like 80% of them in some sort of senior role, if it wasn't founder. And I ended up getting connected to Florian, who's the founder of Loft, which is a startup that became a unicorn here in Brazil in a year and a half. And he talked to me and he recruited me and I started at Loft. Just keep in mind, I was trying to recruit for startups in April last year when I think every company was in a hiring freeze. So I think like having that alumni network and having like someone that was like, no, like this, we should hire her because she's from Penn, because I trust her because she's from Penn. They weren't hiring anyone else. So I think that was super important to me. And then, he's still my mentor and I had a great time at the firm, but just for personal reasons, like wasn't sure if what I was doing there was something that I wanted to keep doing. And then I've transitioned to consulting because I feel like that's going to let me explore more things. But also like about impact, I just wanted to kind of like touch on that point too.
Please.
Florian, this alumni that I mentioned, like has a unicorn startup here in Brazil, obviously is delivering impact. But I think that there's also, I think maybe small scale impact that Penn students still contribute that sometimes is not the type of thing that's on the news. And I think that that's something I have more exposure to because, you know, my friends and I are such recent graduates. But for example, like I have friends that work in banking. I have a friend that works in banking, and in her free time, which isn't a lot, she writes her own design, which is like a type of like online magazine where she just talks about things. She just writes articles and adds her photography and recipes. And, you know, she has people who read that. So she's impacting some people even on a small scale. And that's something she gets no money out of. She only gets the satisfaction of it. I have another friend that like has a full-time job and like records songs on the side. So I think that that's what's most important. It's like people from Penn somehow just always go a little bit beyond, even when it's not for credit. It's like the extra credits of life. You know what I mean? Like how in high school you do extra credits. People at Penn just keep doing extra credits for the rest of their lives. And I think that that's really great.
Look, I think you're bang on in so many ways in that response, as was Shadrach in describing his journey. And look, I mean, what are we all trying in our lives, right? The great search for meaning and purpose, and we all find it in different ways and different things. But the University of Pennsylvania, for us, for all of us on this call, I think has helped in finding that purpose and meaning. And that search is never ending, as you said, Isabel. You know, it's we're always searching for extra credits to get to additional meaning and purpose. So actually, you made kind of a midlife career change that was pretty dramatic. Can you talk about how Penn might have assisted or played a role in that transition?
I think part of the reason why I was searching for something new was because I was sort of like a burnt out investment banker. And I fell asleep driving home one night after working really long hours. And, you know, and I just kind of started down this path of I could have died. So if I died that day, would I have been proud of the life that I've lived? So I, perhaps unconventionally, Wharton-like, I decided to kind of leave my finance career behind and, you know, and then started this social enterprise working with marginal communities in Malaysia. And I think during that transition, the alumni network that I had here in Malaysia were incredibly helpful. Some of the older alumni were great mentors to me in helping me think through the questions and trying to figure out the next path of what I was doing, and you know, really helping me even the early years of Earth Air when I wasn't able to like pay myself a salary, blah blah blah. You know, so like all of the finance people came and helped me look at our cash flow and our business model and gave their ideas. So and then after starting Earth Air, the first big order that we got was actually for the Wharton Business Forum that was held in KL in 2015. So they got all of their like corporate like door gifts for the whole conference from us. And you know, that gave like our first like, so I was so grateful, you know, it's like, oh wait, all the money that we paid is finally like coming to fruition. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so it was like, you know, it just felt so great to be supported in so many ways. Like, you know, when you're trying to start something new, and when I was starting something where I had no experience in, you know, I was a banker, I didn't know anything about fashion and retail and working with rural communities. So doing all of that, and when I was struggling through all of that, a lot of my Penn classmates, friends, supported what I was doing, and yeah, so I think the Penn journey for me is indescribable in a way, and the fact that I also got to like study abroad for me was an amazing experience. I actually ended up studying Swedish.
That's amazing.
And yeah, what I can still speak a little bit. And then, I mean, I'm Indian, as in ethnically Indian. And in Malaysia, I was not able to have a chance to learn my mother tongue, which is Tamil. Mm-hmm. And I was actually able to study Tamil at Penn. So to me, that was like, an amazing journey. That I could learn this like Indian language that I couldn't learn in my home country, but I could learn it at Penn. So my parents were so amazed.
Sashi, I wish we had more time because I want to hear the rest of that story, and maybe we can do that after we end the panel, but I am told I need to wrap it up. And so I'm going to stay with you with one final question. Each of you, I'm going to go rapid fire. What does the Penn community mean to you in one word? Sashi, you're first. One word for Penn community.
I think for me, it's friendship.
Lekha, one word.
Family. Feels like family.
Friendship, family. Shadrach, one word for Penn community.
Impact.
Isabel?
I'm going to try to say it without crying because I miss it so much, but I'd say home.
Aw, you can burst into tears if you'd like. For me, the word is help. I want to thank all our lovely panelists with whom I could have stayed here doing this for another 5 hours. I want to thank everyone for joining us, and I want to turn this back to Kristen, who's been our eminence grise in the background, and if she can wrap us up, that'd be great. Kristen, come on back. Here she is.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ramanan, and to all of our incredible panelists for sharing your stories about the power of Penn and what the Penn community has meant, both while you were studying as an undergrad and beyond. We have learned so much from you. It has been such an inspiring opportunity for us to learn. So sincerely, thank you very much for volunteering your time to join us today and to share so much with us. Now, I know we got a lot of questions over the course of our panel event today, and I know we weren't able to answer all of those questions. So for our audience in attendance, I want to remind you of the vast virtual offerings that are available to you to find out more about Penn and connect with the Penn community further. You see listed on our screen everything from our virtual visit opportunities, including our information sessions, opportunities to learn about each of our undergraduate schools, and to connect with our current students through things like our live student-led virtual tours. You'll also see links to both our Instagram account and our YouTube channel if you're on the hunt for some more on-demand content to dig a little bit deeper into what Penn can offer to you. Now, with that, I want to again thank our wonderful panelists and thank our audience for sharing this wonderful experience together. We are really thrilled to have you tuned in, and we look forward to connecting with you further virtually in the future. Thanks so much and have a wonderful day.